Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude. Now, my intention for today was to start working on the hillsides around the farm, putting in some rice paddy fields and also some low-income housing areas, kind of almost favela style around the farm area. But actually, looking at our needs, we need a massive residential expansion. So I think for today, what I'm going to do is focus on the road and transport network planning for our first town, which will be situated around the beach, so that we can then get in a lot more residents around that town rather than focusing on smaller builds, which aren't going to add much to our city. So I think actually change of course needed. We're better off focusing on building up our population a little bit first, and then we'll come back to the more kind of niche builds in the hillsides and the such like after that. So we'll be starting off by looking at our major road networks, followed by our major transport networks coming into and out of the city. And then coming on to think about smaller transport networks that are going to help people get around, because this island has like literally no transport or road networks across it. So yeah, we need to manage it pretty carefully. So let's focus on how we're going to do that for today. So looking at a top-down view of our map, we've obviously got our one highway coming in here and our one intercity rail connection coming in here. Now, the first thing that I like to do when thinking about transport and road networks is where are our key centre points that people are going to want to get to. Now, we're going to have residential all the way along the coast and various different commercial and tourist hotspots all around the coast as we go, with villages kind of extending into some of these valleys that we see here. We're going to have an airport out here, the main downtown here, and some larger towns around these coastal bays on this side, as well as obviously our one in the centre here. So ultimately, we're going to need to provide connections to all of those places. We're going to have ferries as well, which will take people out to the various islands and, of course, around the coast around the map, but they're not the quickest option. So we need to provide a couple of different road options for everybody, but also public transport. So my idea for this is this main highway is going to come in and down to the downtown, and then it's actually going to loop off over the hill this side, giving people access to the town that'll be over here and then coming round to the airport. We're going to have local highway roads running all the way, and I say highway, we probably won't use the highway road for it, but faster road connections is really what I'm after here. So we're going to have one of those running all the way along the coast, up around this peninsula, down into the downtown and continuing on around the coast. So that will give a second option for any coastal people to get around and get out to the airport, and then obviously continuing on down this coastline here. Longer term, we may come in and do another connection off the main highway, bringing in a larger highway down this way to some of the towns that we'll hopefully have a time to put in around the coast at the bottom there too. But in terms of public transport, we've got the intercity line. Now, I really want to separate out internal trains from intercity because, as many of you will know, it causes quite a lot of problems in Cities Skylines. So I'm actually going to put in an internal train line which runs parallel to our coastal highway along this side, which will then run parallel with our intercity line into the downtown, and then continue on round this coast round to the airport and potentially on down into these towns as well. We'll then also extend the internal train network over these mountains. So, I mean, it's going to be tunnelling through because there's no way a train's getting over some of these. So we have to kind of pick the best point to tunnel through, which won't be here because that's the peak. So likely somewhere over this side or potentially this side to get our trains round through to give a different route option than going all the way around the coast, which would take a very long time indeed. And of course, we'll also have highway connections crossing over here as well, but very loopy roads going up the mountains with a few different tunnels in it, much like our networks that are already in existence. But then for this centre point, I'm thinking we're going to have trams running around the middle of here because I don't just want the same transport all around. Like, trains are obviously the quickest option, so that's why I'm using that for most of that coastline and for most of the access to the towns and villages that will be situated there. But trams will run around this side. So that's kind of the overview of our main networks. And then, of course, like as well as this highway, we want to give another high-speed option for people from the town over here, which will be this kind of second largest built-up area, I think, on the map, down towards the downtown, which will really fill out this whole area and into these bays around here. So I'm thinking with this connection here, what we want to do is swoop this round and bring it round to come into the downtown as a secondary option to our highway here. And of course, we'll then connect in the coastal highways from this side and also around the peninsula into that as well. So that is where we're going to start today, is with this major junction here. Hey, so to start off with, I'm just going to trim this back a tiny touch here, and then we'll grab this road. And what we want to do is make sure that it's elevated, because I'm going to do essentially a bridge over a roundabout junction here. So we'll bring this across, kind of turning it around. We can worry about the sloping and the elevation of it in just a second. We'll bring it round in about like that. And then we're going to continue this road on. Now, instead of a highway, I want people to be able to walk, like, again, because of the issues with road connectivity and the lack of options that people have. Having walkability in this city is incredibly important. So I think we'll actually just convert this to a 6-lane road with grass medium from this point, and we'll sink it back onto the ground. We may need to move this back a little bit to give ourselves a little bit more breathing room there. We will then continue this on this way, and this is going to curve a little bit, so it will kind of go around the slopes that we've got around the map. So in fact, let's actually just put on elevation change here. So we want it to kind of head up right through the middle of these trees and up over the lowest point of this terrain elevation step here. So I think actually we'll just leave it there for now and worry about how we're going to cross some of this elevation, because actually it's a lot steeper than I first thought. Can't just put a road straight over that because it's going to look very, very bumpy indeed. So we'll leave that there for now and we can worry about that further down the line. So coming back to here, what I do want to do now is the start of the elevation. I want this to actually be the same height as this junction here. So then we can get all of these nodes and we'll just level them in height like that. So that's actually coming straight out. We'll need to change some of the elevation there too, for sure. And then we'll need to just raise up this section. So we don't need it to be raised, to be honest, too much. Like, I want it relatively low over the roundabout. So that's probably okay actually like that. I don't know why we're raising that one. So we can actually reduce that there, and then let's slope these back again just with Move It, because I'm on it already, so I find it quicker than switching back to Network Multi-Tool. So that'll probably do, and then from here what we'll do is we'll slope this down. I'm actually going to bring it down a little bit further now that I've seen that a little bit more gradually. So let's grab this road here and we'll just upgrade this section like that. And that should give us enough space to work our roundabout in underneath that. So let's move on to the coastal roads. And what I'm thinking for this is I'm actually just going to use the new 4-lane vanilla road from the update last year. Very exciting to have this in. And what we'll do, again, we're going to put terrain lines on for this whilst we build it. I want to make sure tree anarchy's off for this. And I think we'll just start back from here for now and we can extend it afterwards. Let's make sure we are snapping to ground. Let's click home just to make sure any elevation height is gotten rid of. And then we're just essentially going to follow this coastline round. Like, we don't need to do it exactly because we're going to build around this road, obviously. And we can, of course, change the position of it as we need to when we come to build along here. But for now, we'll just follow it around pretty smoothly. I want to kind of hug it to the either side, either the coast or the base of the cliff, so that we've got room to build around it. And I think we'll bring it in something like this. In fact, let's go slightly further straight and then we can angle it around like that. I'm thinking we want this roundabout to be right in the middle of this corner here. So like that looks pretty good to me. And then let's have the roundabout cross in the middle. So let's turn off toggle to node snap in. And we'll just have it coming in straight about there. And then we're going to actually curve this road off round this way, because this is going to go up onto the hillsides, across this highway here, and just be a connector route for that. So we'll just curve it round like that for now and leave that for later when we come to do those road networks. And we have got enough clearance here, so that's absolutely fine, and we can worry about the pillars afterwards. And then coming down for this coastal road, let's bring this out straight from here. So I want to make sure we're getting a nice 90-degree angle there. And then what we're going to do is bend this one round, and we'll worry about the railway in a minute. But we'll bend it around like that, and then we're going to have to head through this really, really narrow gap here. So again, we're just using freeform for this. Oh, something's gone drastically wrong there. If we just get to move it, we'll go to nodes, highlight that node and just say to terrain height. There we go. It's a little bit better. That's the coastal terraforming for you coming into effect there. And then what we can do is just follow this terrain line round as closely as we can. Like, this is going to push out the beach a bit, I think, around in this area, but that will be okay. Okay, and I think we will leave that like that for now. So that gives us our main connections in place. And yeah, so we're going to have to do a lot of terraforming around this and detailing to get rid of our random green cliff texture. Although I do quite like it going down onto the beach, but it's a little bit much there. but we will come back to that. Now, focusing on here, let's go to Roundabout Builder and we'll build ourselves a roundabout. Very handy mod there for lazy people like me. But it's a massive time saver, I won't lie. We're going to find our 3-lane road for this, 3-lane one-way road, and we're going to put in a roundabout. Let's make it quite big because we're going to need a few extra exits off this than what we do have here. So let's go like that, and we need to check the height so you can see. Now this has come round to a point where this actually isn't high enough here. So let's grab this node and we're just going to level it off with that one, which I think is already sloping down a little bit actually. That looks just about okay to me, so I think that that will be all right. But let's now obviously slope this down a little bit more gently, so we'll go a little bit further. We'll hit slope tools, and then let's again remember to upgrade our road here. Just so that slope is a little bit more gentle. And yeah, I kind of like how that looks, this sort of flyover element to it. Okay, so from here, we're going to grab our highway slip lane roads because they're the only one-way roads that we've got that will be appropriate for this. And we'll go snap to ground. We'll sort out the elevations in a second. But what I'm going to do with this one is bring this straight out and round to connect up into the roundabout here. So it's going to be almost under the tunnel. It's very close to this node, in fact. So we may need to adjust this road over a little bit. Of course, one thing I've actually forgotten right off the bat is let's brace our roundabout. Okay, that's a little bit better. Hopefully it won't get deformed as we put these in. Then what we are going to do right before that same node is we're going to bring out a slip lane for this way. So we may actually need to make this roundabout a little bit larger to accommodate this, but I'm imagining there's going to be quite a lot of traffic flowing through this junction, which is why I'm doing it like this as opposed to, a different method. Over here, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to come off the roundabout this way and connect it up into there. And same goes for here. However, I'm now thinking, actually, let's upgrade this to a 4-lane road. So we've got so many exits coming on and off it. I think it will be needed here. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, we want to delete our bracing. And then we'll come into Traffic Manager. And we're going to click Shift Control Click. And there we go, we've got our roundabout nicely set up, I think. And then what we do want to do is, of course, come in with some node controller here and some IMT, which I'll do later in the detailing, to smooth out some of these nodes and just offset some of these exits a little bit. So I don't really mind about the kind of smoothness of that because there's only one coming off here. Same goes for here. We can just pull this back a little bit, but you can see this node is actually red because these are too close together. What we need to do is just adjust this up a little bit. Let's check this one, and that should now be fine. Like they won't have a problem crossing that. Obviously, need a load of IMT to make it look okay, but that is fine. And what I'm thinking as well is, because that's quite a sharp turn here, so to avoid these people going onto the roundabout, let's give them another option for this. So we're actually going to bring across a small road like this to join into here. But of course here, what we do want, let's go into Traffic Manager, we don't want them turning right, so they're just going straight on. And then let's give ourselves a dedicated turning lane on this side so that we're avoiding traffic. Anyone going straight onto the roundabout can go in that lane. Anyone turning off this way can avoid the roundabout altogether. And we could do that in other places, but I think that's likely to be the one that's the sharpest turn there. So that's the one that's probably going to give us the most issues. So I think that's a little bit better to do that like that. Okay, so we've got a lot of smoothing of the roads to do in various sections here and a lot of IMT and detailing to do around this roundabout, which we will come on to a little bit later. But that sets up our junction quite nicely. So now we're coming on to a quick time-lapse to fill in the grid network for the main starter town. And what I did want was this really large beachfront road with parking all the way along the side of it. So I've used a workshop asset for this that you can find in the asset list link below. And then we're coming on to the grid structure and looking at places like French Polynesia. They are generally grid-based in the more built-up areas, but things are a little bit wonky, not like perfectly rectangular shapes. So we're going for very square-edged patterns here, but off-piste, so not uniform at all and not a kind of set, rigid grid pattern. And I did want to get some interesting shapes into this because I've got some ideas for what I want to put into the beach town. I definitely don't want things perfectly square. But the fact we have the luxury of mods, obviously we're able to move buildings around with Move It to accommodate odd zoning patterns. And through this all in my mind, I already have planned out where the public transit will go. So there's things like leaving space for our train station that will come into this town, leaving space for the rail lines, and obviously the big waterfront road for trams, and making sure that I've got a big road that can accommodate those trams in place as well. Now, looking in the options for TMPE, there is a way with that mod that you can make it so that these traffic lights don't appear on every single junction, because this is a massive, massive overkill. So if we go into options, we'll find TMPE, and then in policies, there's lots of different options here to explore. So I definitely want buses may ignore lane arrows. I also want this vehicles may turn red traffic lights, because what that means is if someone's coming right, they can still turn right even if it's red their direction, like same rules that apply in the States, for example. We're not allowed to do that in the UK, sadly, but I think it's a pretty fair rule. And we'll also apply that to left and right turns between one-way streets as well. And vehicles going straight on may change lanes at junctions, definitely want that. Vehicles follow priority rules at junctions with timed traffic lights. Yes, we do want that. And we want to turn off this, so automatically add traffic lights if applicable. No, we don't want that. And dedicated turning lanes, yes, let's have them automatically. So really handy little policies in the options within TMPE here. So definitely do that. But this would now get rid of these when we placed in a new road. So, I mean, I can just show you an example of that by placing in this now. So instead of traffic lights coming in here, there's now none, so I like that. And then we can apply traffic lights where we want them, but of course I do need to go through and turn them off here. I'm going to leave them on this major end junction because that's two fairly large roads coming in, so yeah. And I like this road because this gives people coming from this highway a different option to get onto this main road going into the downtown, as opposed to having to go through this roundabout. So that's kind of another high-speed option. I think they'd probably prefer to take that over going into the roundabout and up onto this road. So yeah, equally from this direction as well, they could cut through the town centre here and come out onto that road. So we're just offering them multiple options, which is the whole point of designing an efficient road network. So turning our attention now to transit, and firstly trains. So I have put in this road here because I do want a train station at this point. So I have got a workshop asset, which is this simple train station, which is essentially the vanilla train station, but I feel like it looks a little bit nicer. It's more low-key, much more low-key. And we've got yet more rain in Solitude. Let's just go ahead and turn that off. It is tropical, I know, but it does get slightly annoying to play with all the time, but we will leave dynamic weather on so it can come and go. Now, of course, on here, I definitely want to bob off these trees, so let's get rid of those, and then we'll probably put some shops in there when it comes to the detailing. We do a little bit of detailing around this train station and in front of it in particular. But yeah, I really like this little asset. You can find this in the asset list in the description below, but yeah, just a nice simple version of the vanilla train station there. Now, I definitely don't actually want intercity trains stopping in this small town. I want them to carry on through and go through to the downtown, but this will be an internal train line. So what we need to do here is set up some different networks. So firstly, I am going to have the intercity line bypassing this right at the back. So if we just hover here, we'll try and get this in as best we can parallel to this station. So yeah, it can flow down the back of this station, no problem. And then obviously come up to meet our intercity line here, and we'll continue this on this way as well. Now, it is a little bit concerning to do a level crossing here, but ultimately, and so close to the roundabout as well, I think it may cause us problems in the long run. But ultimately, that is how a lot of these networks are set up in these various countries. Like, they're not tunnelling or bridging over all the time. So we are going to leave it like that for now and hope that it's okay in the long run, but we'll keep an eye on it. And same goes with the internal train line. We're going to bring this out. Now, with this node, I don't want two of them really close together. So what we are going to do, and we're going to do the same trick on the other side as well, is I'm going to pull this into this node and then have this come out this side. And what I do want is this running parallel to this. So let's go to Network Multi-Tool. We'll go to the parallel option and we'll select all of this section. We actually want it to be on the other side. So let's hit Tab. And we want it to be pretty close. I'm happy with the double train line. So yeah, that's absolutely fine for me. So let's hit enter there. Got a very slight gap in between them. The wires aren't crossing. So yeah, all okay with that. And then what we will do is get our train line again, draw it into this node. And then with a bit of node controller, we can sort this out. So we've only got one node crossing here, which won't interfere with traffic quite as much as it would otherwise. But what we want to do is shift these over so it looks like they come out straight. So we're going to go to the shift function here. We're going to find this orange node and we're going to shift it out so it is straight with this one. It looks like, yeah, 10 meters will do that nicely there. Then same goes with the blue node, which is coming in this side. So we'll just offset that like that. So it seems straight. We'll do -10, so that's perfectly equal. And I'm happy with the little curvy bump going into the station there. That's fine. So now we only have one node here. However, the really annoying thing is that the trains can cross the tracks. So what we do want to do is make sure with this station that we turn off allow intercity trains. For now, I'm going to leave them on because we're not hooked up into any other train networks, so it doesn't really matter if they're coming in there. But as soon as we build our downtown, that will be turned off. And hopefully the intercity trains will choose to take this outer line. We could always change the speed limit with it as well. Yeah, so we can lower the speed limit of this outer line, which is probably what we will do further down the line. But yeah, for the moment we'll leave it the same. But if we lower the speed limit coming through the station, then the intercity trains should want to take this outer line. So we'll just make the internal trains a little bit slower than the intercity ones there. So now we want to do exactly the same node trick coming out this side. Because as mentioned with this internal train line, what we do want to do is bring it round so that it runs parallel to this road here. So again, with Network Multi-Tool, let's use the parallel function and we're actually going to go all the way along this node. We'll hit tab so it's the other side. Now I want to leave a tiny bit of a gap in this. Let's just press equals a couple of times, I think like that. Then we'll hit enter there. Then we get this lovely parallel train network running alongside our coastal highway road there. So now our intercity train line, what we do want is this one again, doing the same node controller trick, coming into this node here, and then coming on out of here into this node and using offset for that. So a little bit of playing around with shift and offset there has made this look pretty smooth, and I've also angled these so they kind of follow the area of the level crossing there. We probably don't want overhead wires running across here, I don't think, so let's go and use network skins for this. We'll go to our train line, we'll go to categories, we'll say none, and then we'll just upgrade these pieces of train line coming in here, and yeah, that actually gets rid of those overhead wires crossing this junction. And we will do the same here because I feel like that's just a little bit too much for what we want here. So like that is absolutely fine. So the next thing is to consider a tram stop or a tram hub to take our trams out and round this peninsula this way. What I'm actually thinking of doing is using one of the new assets, which is the Metro Tram Hub, which came with the update recently. We're just going to delete this section of road here and we're going to add this in between these two junctions. So I want to get this in as straight as we possibly can. I think we'll connect it in there. So yeah, that piece of road is connected and all we do need to do now is just hook it in the other side. Let's come to here and find our tram road, and I don't know if we want trees or not yet, so we'll just use this one for now. We'll place that in there. It has shortened the station a little bit, but I think I'm okay with that. Actually, I think for now, instead of having that warning there, let's get rid of that. Let's actually just downgrade this section back to regular 4-lane road. Because what we are going to do is bring the trams up to meet the station so that people can get to and from the station onto the tram network. So I'm going to use the 2-lane road with tram tracks, I think, for this. They've got a dedicated tram line running through here, and we'll just upgrade this section of road again so it's coming out in front of the station like that. And then what we are going to do here, I'm actually going to add in another road like that there. So with this tram network, let's downgrade that. We're going to have it flowing down like this and then convert into an actual tram road, because what we're going to put over here is another hub, which is going to be the tram ferry hub. And this one is going to sit on the water's edge here. Now we need to do a bit of terraforming around this to make sure this ferry depot makes sense here. But we can do some key work around here and close off the beach at this point and bring the beach back a little bit, which we'll do in the detail and time lapse. But this is going to bring in extra tram connection down to the ferry hub down here. So what we do want to do, of course, is grab this road and just bring it out to connect up into this one. We'll sort out the slopes and all of the detailing around that in a second in the detail and time lapse. But then we will also grab the tram road and we're going to bring this out along the waterfront this side. So we'll connect into this node and we're just going to, again, run parallel to this. So let's again grab a network multi-tool. And we'll go from this node to this node, I think. Actually, we can't go to this one. Yeah, with our tram road like that. I think right up close I'm absolutely fine with. So let's hit enter there. And then we just we just need to remove my tiny bit of road and reconnect that in properly like that. We'll probably want to smooth out that corner. It's a little bit sharp, but again, we'll come on to that in detailing. Let's turn off all snapping and snapping to nodes for a second as we bring this down, and this can then connect into the road here. This looks horrendous, but don't worry, we'll fix it. Yeah, wow, that's truly off. So of course, let's make this the same height as this node here, and that will help there, and then we'll just need to bring this down in a slightly smoother slope down to our ferry hub here. And this can be where our key network starts to kind of smooth off the ferry hub this side. And we'll of course need to turn the trams around there, which is not a problem. But that will then flow nicely from here, and then we can continue the tram line on down the coast. And then what I will do here, just for a small section for now, is again use the parallel network tool. I'm going to go from here to about here for now with our tram road. I'm actually going to do it the other side. And we're going to offset it just a little bit. So we've got a very slight gap between our road and the tram road there. And we'll hit enter, and then we just need to connect it in this side. So that's kind of the start formation of our tram network. And of course we need to place the tram depot, which again we will come on to shortly as well. And the final piece of the transport puzzle is having an intercity bus hub in, just to again help people come in. We may be wallowing our budget a little bit here, but we can turn some of these hubs off. We definitely don't need the ferry hub, for example, right now. We haven't got any other ferry lines in, so let's turn that off. Keep the train station open for now, and we'll just keep an eye on the budget. But yeah, we're going to have the intercity bus station sitting in here, and I will come on and do some bus lines through this area, and I think what we'll use for that is the little minibus asset. So it kind of looks like very small, very local transport to our first town over here. I think that's more appropriate for this setting than using any kind of double-decker or larger buses. But this gives us the basis of our transport network and starter road network for our first larger town. And so the final part of today's episode is just a little time lapse doing a bit of detailing around some of the networks and tidying them up ready for building. So in particular, the ferry stop needed a lot of work with the quays that we're putting in front of it here, tidying up the waterfront so that they make sense, and adding a little bit of rainforest jungle overgrowth to the banking behind it with a couple of little props here and there. And the rest of the time lapse is much of the same, so tidying up some of the network. So we'll add in a little bit of detailing around the rail lines, a bit of fencing, a bit of undergrowth and some surface painter around there. Tidy up a lot of the gaps between the tram tracks and the roads, add car parking spaces to a big waterfront road. And also a small amount of detailing around the train station. And then just finishing up this time lapse, you will see later on a lot of IMT work on that main intersection, as well as a little bit of surface painter and undergrowth detailing around it, just to help it really blend into the environment around it. Now, of course, with the trams, they do come with the Snowfall DLC, and if you are interested in picking that up, or any of the Mass Transit DLC as well, which we are using a lot of the infrastructure from in this particular episode, then please do check out my instant gaming link linked in the description below. Super cheap game codes, and it also helps to support the channel. So I think that has set us up quite nicely for our first larger beach town that we will have here and start off in the next episode. And you won't have seen, but off camera I did also extend our first residential district from the first episode, very much of the same vibes that you would have seen in that episode right there. But that has actually brought our population up to over 2,000 now, with all of our demands actually pretty equal between residential, commercial and industrial, which gives us flexibility to do what we want with our town centre next time. I hope you feel like you've learned something in terms of how to plan out your wider road and transit options from fairly early on in the game, which I think is the best way to do it. Always think ahead so that you don't have to backtrack afterwards, particularly if you're a detailer like me. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really appreciated. Drop me a comment and let me know if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see along the waterfront or in this first starter town as well, or across the wider city as a whole. But that is all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for the cinematics and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.